Hello, everyone. Dom Tiberi here. It is time for the greatest rivalry in all of sports, Ohio State versus Michigan. We're going to break it down with our guys. Of course, we have Dave Holmes and Adam King from 10 TV, along with former Ohio State receiver, the one and only DeVier Posey. You hear him on 97.1 The Fan. And Tim May from 97.1 The Fan, Letterman Road. Dave, with all that's going on, and it's documented, it's been crazy. There's no love lost between these two clubs, but especially now with all that's going on, investigation, Harbaugh is suspended. Is that a distraction for the Michigan football team?
100%. The question is it a good distraction or a bad distraction? Because whether you agree or not, common sense folks would not, Michigan thinks they're a victim. They think they've been unfairly targeted, they've been singled out, they think Ohio State's behind a lot of it, and they think that they are the victims. Now, I don't personally feel it that way. I think most people don't, but the folks up there do. And if they can somehow channel it, Michael Jordan was the king of creating drama in his own head that did or did not exist. So maybe they can make this a Michigan versus everybody scenario. It might actually help them.
All right, Tim, and everyone can jump in on this, but Tim, how do you see what's going on up there? We've been doing this a long time. I find it hard to believe that a guy like Bo Schembechler would be very happy with what is going on. Yeah. And now these guys up there are painting themselves as victims. How is that even possible?
Well, you know, you've seen those old cowboy movies, comedies where the guy shoots himself in the foot and then claims he got wounded, you know. And he's a Purple Heart. That's what's going on right now. I mean, they're just trying to wiggle their way out of this whole situation in one form or fashion, throwing mud at everybody else but themselves. That's very unfortunate that it has come down that way. But no, I think the only people that see themselves as victims in this have an M on their chest.
Well, it's Ryan Day's brother did all this.
Exactly. Yeah, Ryan Day's brother did all this. And then on top of that, it's hard to remember, but I remember Harbaugh has already served a 3-game suspension this year. Yeah. You're talking about taking guys overseas. You're talking about Maisie Smith last year. Harbaugh sweeping that under the rug as far as his arrest and things like that. Michigan has a rap sheet that's very long, and this is just an exclamation mark on it.
This is the tip of the iceberg.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Tim. This is what I find so funny. Every statement from Michigan says Michigan will continue to cooperate with the investigation.
Yeah.
Wasn't Jim Harbaugh literally suspended this year?
Yes,
for not cooperating.
Exactly.
So I think it's comical that they say, we're going to cooperate. Your coach has already been suspended for not cooperating.
And not only that, but they've gotten rid of, for example, Connor Stalions is no longer on the staff. He's no longer compelled, for example, to talk to the NCAA, and their linebacker coach are not compelled to talk to the NCAA because they're gone.
Yeah.
What I think is amazing, and this is my only take on this whole thing, they created the mess themselves.
Other than Ryan Day's brother.
Connor Stalions was at Central Michigan, we assume.
Yeah, he got on the list.
To me, that blows my mind. That
Go back and watch that game. It's hilarious.
But the fact that they still don't know who this man is. And
well, they know who it is. They just don't want to say who it is.
And for them, for Jim to get up there, and Tim, we've been covering Jim a long time. He was the guy that guaranteed victory.
He's from me to Adam when he did that, way back in '86.
I mean, he's always been out there.
Yeah.
But for him to get up there and say, we're America's team, and to say, I can't wait, I'm going to go into court, and I've got a lot to say and all that. And then when their chance comes, it's like.
He found out they weren't going in front of Judge Judy is what he found out.
Yeah.
Well, and then just being the Michigan man thing, right? Everybody up there believes they have the moral compass of the whole Big Ten. And then when you talk to former players, I like to, I talk stuff and text messages to guys I know that played at Michigan. They're in total denial.
Well, let me ask you this.
Like, this didn't happen.
It didn't happen.
Oh, you guys switched your signs last year. No, this is an elaborate. Yeah. Just everything. You have PowerPoints. They're hacking into iClouds. Dom, this is crazy.
Well, let me ask you this. You played in this rivalry. You did well against these guys. Is there, though, a general dislike? Forget about the respect and all that. I'm just saying, is there a general dislike between Ryan Day and Jim Harbaugh? Do you see that?
Absolutely. I mean, you saw Harbaugh's interview earlier this week. He said, hey, what's your respect like for Ryan Day? He goes on an array of things just talking about, hey, we're focused on what we do. Didn't even answer the question. I believe Ryan Day doesn't like how Jim Harbaugh positions himself. He's never really had an opportunity, really, I think, to beat him fair and square. I think this year is a chance for Ryan Day to really give it to Jim Harbaugh and kind of show everything over these last 2 years was, downright cheap.
And Ryan Day's answer was almost identical to Jim Harbaugh's.
Both coaches were asked if they respect the other coach. Both coach Went all the way around the question.
Never actually answered.
Answer the question.
How do you spell respect?
Yeah. Aretha can. They can.
Yes.
Adam, is this motivation, what's going on for Ohio State? And I say it is. I know what it's done to Buckeye Nation's blood. My question is this. Do the Buckeyes need to be careful and not get too emotional too soon?
100%. And I've said this. Listen, this game shapes up to be arguably the most important in the rivalry's history, and that includes 2006.
Yep.
But the thing you have to do in this moment is remember that it's a football game. And we heard Kyle McCord say that. It's just a game. And if you go out there and treat this like it is all or nothing, Tim, you were trying to tell Ryan Day everything that's on the line. He didn't want to hear it at the press conference because they know what's out there, and they know this sign-stealing scandal. I will say this. It adds a lot of motivation when you think about the last 2 years. But with this year, I, for one, think it helps Ohio State.
Yeah.
Because Michigan was stealing signs for the beginning of this season.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. America's team was allegedly stealing signs.
Allegedly.
And then they had to stop stealing signs. And now they have to learn to play football again without knowing if it's a run or a pass. And that's not easy.
Here's what I will say about all this, Tim. The rivalry had become a little bit stagnant because Jim Tressel owned them, Urban Meyer owned them. And we could talk about Michigan's record, what it was back before Tim and I were born, and yes, they dominated back then. Yes, they had a good run in the late 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
But with that said, in modern history, which is what matters, Michigan became irrelevant. So no one rooted for them harder to become relevant than I did because the conference needs them.
You're a Michigan man. You've always been on record of that.
I heard you said that Harbaugh was a great coach.
You can't spell Dom without the M.
But let me just say this. This off the field stuff has gone on for years, Tim.
Yeah.
Of course.
All kinds of, and it makes the rivalry. But these guys are not victims.
No.
Don't ask who created the monster when your last name's Frankenstein.
I agree with a
Well, in all
lot of
fairness,
what you
Frankenstein
said.
didn't create the monster.
No.
I agree with a lot of what you said, but the bottom line is this rivalry did need some juice. I mean, after the first 2 decades of the 21st century, it was big-time Ohio State. And I think those runs basically enhance the rivalry, just like, our friend and everybody else, John Cooper, 210-1 against Michigan. Yeah. That made them disregard how big this thing was. Yeah. Now Michigan was back. The Big Ten is definitely better with Michigan back, being on the level that it is.
I will say this, though. We've had this discussion in the last couple of years where you say that Michigan should be good. Fans should root for Michigan to win every game until the big game. But one. I think for the first time, if you polled Buckeye Nation, they would say, no way.
No, they
don't want them to win another game.
I was rooting for Maryland last week.
Yes,
honestly,
I think every Buckeye fan was. Yeah. Buckeye fans were putting on their Penn State jerseys when Michigan played them. That idea of we're rooting for them so we get that top 3 matchup, that's gone.
Yeah, and the fact they've caught the nation's imagination with this. They're not really America's team right now. They're America's most wanted team.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what they are right now. And then they're having a hard time. I'm talking about their fans, et cetera, having a hard time dealing with that. But it is what it is. This will play itself out.
Ohio State is so hated nationwide as a brand. They have made Ohio State. They've made them the darling in this game. Yeah. They have now made.
Amazing.
They have
true.
now,
Wow.
America is actually pulling for Ohio State, and America hates the Buckeyes. They hate the fan base. They hate the team. Ohio versus everybody. This week it's actually everybody against Michigan. I sincerely believe the nation wants Ohio State to win.
You should put that on a shirt.
Maybe I will. Copyright.
I heard your buddy, even your buddy Paul Feinbaum is behind Ohio State.
Right?
Yeah, I had him on my podcast this week, the Tim May Show.
The Tim May Show podcast.
Yeah, but we were talking about it. I mean, it's just it's amazing what everybody else sees that's going on right now and what they see. I'm talking about across the border. It's really amazing.
Adam, this game is always huge. Many believe 2006 was the biggest in the rivalry, modern history at least, and I was there, 1 versus 2. But I am now hearing, and I may be leaning this way, that this year's game, given all the business, that this is the biggest game in the history. You see it that way?
So the way that I look at this game, it's kind of like in golf. When you tie 2 holes, and that 3rd hole is now worth 3. Because the last...
Skins game.
Yeah, so the last 2 years,
Pot builds.
because of the sign stealing, have almost been wiped away. And Michigan fans will say that's not true. But I can tell you right now, if Ohio State wins on Saturday, there will be no more talk about the last 2 years. It will be for the rest of the history, useful signs. That's what happened there. We're back to dominating. But if Michigan wins on Saturday, that means that not only do they get to claim this year, they can say, sign stealing aside, we dominated this rivalry. We're now up to, it completely changes everything in the rivalry. There's never been a game that counts this much. Yes, I understand. There's still national title implications on the line, like 2006. Everything is equal. There's Heisman candidates out there. The only difference, this one's going to be played up in Ann Arbor.
DeVier, you played in this rivalry. I know you're proud. What is your record against them?
3-1.
3-1. And the one that sticks in your head is the one you lost.
Yeah, Braxton overthrew me. I love you, Braxton.
Dude,
I got a 3.
If we asked Braxton that question, do you think he would say it was overthrown?
Braxton would say he may not fast enough to get there.
Well, after that, Braxton moved to wide receiver, so he knows the feeling of being overthrown. But I love Braxton. Anyway,
this is retirement throw.
Let me
game
ask
was crazy, though.
Let me
he
ask
speaks
you.
the truth.
That's hilarious.
Let me ask you.
So
the
funny.
Buckeyes have lost 2 in a row.
Yeah.
You played. You've talked to the current players.
Yes.
You know those guys. How angry are they? How bad do they want this?
Yeah.
Are they on a slow burn, especially the defensive guys,
Yeah.
because they feel like they lost last year's game?
These guys have been on a slow burn since that week before they got into the college football playoffs. They were all in their apartment watching the voting show, hoping they got in. They went out in Georgia, they put it on the line. All year, these guys are rolling into this game 11-0. This defense is playing at an incredibly high clip. I mean, they're one of the best defenses in the country. They haven't given up a play over 50 yards. Michigan's defense has. So this defense is mad. They want to pin their ears back, and they want to get their hands on J.J. McCarthy. We felt like last year we got embarrassed on Senior Day in our stadium. With all that swirling, Tommy Eichenberg, Talik Williams, Mike Hall, those guys don't care anything about that. They're out for blood, and they're going to get it on Saturday.
Tim, there has always been respect between these two clubs. I remember you and I talking to Woody Hayes,
Bo Schembechler.
and Bo Schembechler and Earl Bruce, and even Coop and all those guys. The respect. Even Urban had respect for. Didn't like him,
No.
but there was respect. Me, on the outside looking in, it looks like there's not much respect between either team right now. Maybe the head coaches or whatever. How do you see it?
Well, you know how you run into somebody and they just rub you the wrong way? Just get the idea. Ryan Day has been rubbed the wrong way by Jim Harbaugh for years. And you can't hide that. You know, you can talk about it. You know, you can try to give politically correct answers to things. But, you know, Jim Harbaugh rubs Ryan Day the wrong way, and it looks like vice versa. So what's wrong with that? This is a rivalry, man. Who cares? That's the way I look at it. And in my opinion, the big thing that's changed this year, I think there's a different Ryan Day at the helm compared to this time a year ago from the standpoint of let it all hang out, turn it all loose, let it go in this game, because you didn't get the sense that was the case last year.
Well, real quick, Austin Ward asked him today. I was
We've all been
surprised.
asking
He
him for all
said,
year.
You were really tight last year.
Yes.
And he said, I don't see it that way, but I think everybody saw it.
I believe he changed that Monday after the Michigan game. Going into Georgia, I remember him coming in the stadium, throwing his hands up, right? The Ryan Day interview after the Notre Dame game. Something happened last year in this rivalry game that he's just been licking his chops for this week. I'm super excited because I believe his creativity as offensive coordinator and the things that he brings to the table, I think he's been holding some things back, right? The Xavier Johnson package that we saw in the Georgia game, I think he kind of held Cade Stover back a bit. But he's going to have some
Marvin
things dialed
reverse.
up. The Marvin reverse, right?
Dom wants Marvin to throw the football.
You haven't even seen.
That's the only way he hasn't scored this year, right? He hasn't
Why
thrown
not?
a touchdown.
You haven't even seen the Emeka.
I want to be clear. I just put the words in his mouth.
was his section.
You haven't even seen the Emeka Egbuka package yet. I mean, it's this is interesting. Like I said, there's a freedom going into a game when all that matters is whether you win the game. There's a freedom to that.
Let me ask you this, Dave, because it's one of the weirdest setups in all of college football.
I love it.
I actually don't like the
I
tunnel.
love it.
I think
One
it's
way in, one way
ridiculous.
out.
There's one way in, one way out, and it's like the gladiators are coming out, and we know weird things happen in that tunnel.
Yeah.
I mean, and it goes way back to even when Woody was coaching and all that. But we've seen it really get weirder in the past. Documented what happened between Michigan State and Michigan. Apparently, Michigan State was totally at fault in that deal, or whatever.
Well, they were fighting America's team.
Yeah, they didn't need due process.
How
that
big
day.
of a concern is that this time around? And Ryan was asked about it today and said we're addressing it. But And I want to hear what you have to say because you've been in that tunnel.
Okay.
Is it a big concern?
It's a big concern if you're a kicker, a punter, or a cornerback. I would say if you're the smaller guys on the team, you don't want to brawl anyone in the tunnel. Yeah, it's gonna happen. And I'm not saying anyone's gonna deck someone. Hopefully they keep their cool. But there absolutely will be pushing, shoving, words said, one way in and one way out. I'll say this: a lot of people hate Michigan Stadium. I love it. I love it as a venue. I love the banner jump. I love the one-way tunnel. I love the single bowl. I think it's got old school Keith Jackson voice in my head ambiance.
Yeah.
And I love the single tunnel, but it's asking for trouble on Saturday.
The Big Ten, though, they're supposed to be making a big-time effort on Saturday for that not to happen.
I mean, you're going to
don't have both
police
teams in the tunnel at the same time.
At the half, though, as they're leaving.
We've all been in those tunnels under a mountain. You're always worried about that collision, man.
What you were in that. What's the worst thing that happened when you were up there?
Well, the thing is, Dom,
that you can tell us.
We never really had any incidents, but it's the mindset of going in the tunnel, right? It's walking down that hallway, hearing the echoes. You can kind of yell and your voice bounces off the walls, and then you hear the crowd as soon as you come out there, right? But when you're a player, you're understanding that every single Ohio State guy that's played in this rivalry has walked this tunnel. You want to be coming back in this tunnel with a win. I think the guys need to go into the tunnel and out of the tunnel with the Marcus Hall mindset.
Tunnel vision. You're saying they need tunnel vision.
The Marcus Hall mindset.
Well, let me just say
Especially
this.
The double eagle. Who can forget the double eagle?
The history of this thing, though, it's really interesting because at one point, what is now the visitor locker room, that used to be in the back when Woody was coaching, that was the home locker room, and then they switched. But what is now the visitor is now the home. Well, when Woody was up there one year, and this story's famous, he wouldn't let the guys flush the toilets. Now, this locker room, let me tell you, the locker room, it was just, there were no stalls or anything. It was just some commode. And you know what it's like before a game. Yeah. And Woody claimed that Bo had messed with the pipes and that they would every time someone flushed the toilet, the pipes would rattle, and it was taking their mind off the game.
Yeah.
And so these guys were ready they were ready for war. They were so angry when they came out of there because Bo had messed with the pipes.
You know what would take my mind off the game? A locker room where no one is flushed. That sounds rough.
Well, I wish we took Woody's paranoia into the last year. You know, we're going to need some of that this year. You know, we always had a high paranoia of Michigan.
I think it's back.
He's about right.
I think it's back.
He's right.
I think it's back.
I think the rivalry is back.
Yeah. I think it's back. Tim, how much pressure is there on Kyle McCord going into this game? Is he the difference?
Touches the ball on every play. Everything's going to go through him. A Big Ten shot at a Big Ten championship, a shot at playing for a college football playoff is on the line. I don't know how you can get more pressure on a quarterback, but sometimes, and Kyle McCord seems to be at his best, and I think that's what he's proven this year when he's kind of backed into a corner. The Notre Dame game, he had a tough time during parts of that game. But my goodness, when you needed him to be throwing strikes, he threw strikes on that last drive. So there's a lot of pressure on him. He understands that, and he thrives in that. Dave, he says.
You know, Dave, the other saying is that the quarterback and the head coach get all the credit. They get all the blame. With that said, how much pressure now is on Ryan Day?
There will be 110,000 people in the Big House, and not one of them even has half the pressure that Ryan Day has on him, more than anyone else. One of those guys that has pressure on him is going to be a hotel or a sports bar watching the game in Jim Harbaugh. But Ryan Day is going to have more pressure than anyone else because this is a career-defining game. He beat him the first time. COVID happened. Bad luck for sure. They would have pounded him that year, of course. Then you get back-to-back. But he's been given a second lease at life. The governor called at midnight and said, there's an asterisk there. And we're going to accept it, provided you get this thing back on track. And so if Ohio State wins this, they're going to point to that and say, the only way you beat us is if you cheated. If Michigan wins, they're going to say, what now? What's your next excuse? So this is a legacy-defining game for Ryan Day. I mean, if he wins this, I think Buckeye Nation is going to wipe the last couple of years away, and we're all going to laugh about sign stealing. If he loses this game, you're coming back home with a chance to graduate an entire class of guys who never once beat Michigan.
DeVier, Ryan Day told me the other day that they're going to put a great game plan together, and then they need to let the kids go out, not think about anything, and just play. Play free, play fast. What is he saying?
He's saying to go out in that game and just not worry about the rivalry, the sign-stealing things. You have to bring a level of intensity that matches one of the best teams in the country. Ohio State or Michigan, this defense is playing well. J.J. McCarthy will probably potentially be a first-round pick. They have great players. They have great schemes, and we just have to match their energy at home on the road. I mean, and the thing
Is
about
he talking about like we saw at Georgia?
Exactly, or even Notre Dame. I mean, I had doubts in Kyle McCord, and the thing about me doubting a guy, I love nothing in football than prove me wrong, right? Just prove me wrong, Kyle. Prove me wrong with the Devin Brown. Prove me wrong on the last drive. I'm worried about him going head-to-head with J.J. McCarthy. Kyle, prove me wrong again. Outperform that guy. Like Tim says, he performs well when his back is against the wall. Bottom line, I'm also looking for Marvin Harrison to have a Heisman-defining game. He plays great when he's asked to play great. And if Kyle McCord and Marvin Harrison find that connection and Travion runs the ball the way he did last couple of weeks, this offense is going to be hard to stop in Ann Arbor.
Adam, we talk about the pressure on Ryan Day. How about the pressure on the guy who's not going to be on the sidelines because he's been suspended? How much pressure is he feeling? How much should he be worried about his legacy? I heard Paul Feinbaum say today that he doesn't think Harbaugh will coach at Michigan after this year. I mean, is there pressure on him even though he can't coach in this game?
The interesting thing is, I don't know that there's any pressure on Jim Harbaugh, but there's also a ton because this is very likely going to be his last Ohio State-Michigan game. Yeah. And if Ohio State wins, it pretty much wipes away those two losses because they'll always have an asterisk, or the 2 wins for Michigan. And so then when you look back at Harbaugh's record against Ohio State, he never has a single win he can point to and say, see, there was no scandal, we just beat them. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of pressure there. But I do wonder, Jim Harbaugh's got a lot of other things to think about right now. I think in the grand scheme of things, losing to Ohio State would be terrible. I think it would, obviously he wants to win. There's a ton of pressure from the Michigan fan base to win. But also, he's a coach right now that's dealing with what's my future in college athletics? What's my future? There's reports out there the NFL won't take him if college suspends him. So pressure on Jim Harbaugh spans well beyond anything that's going to take place.
This thing is not a recruiting scandal. This thing is, when you're talking about cheating, when you're talking about stealing signs or whatever, although the NFL tries to do that all the time. Mm-hmm. That's why everybody talks like this. But, what's the pressure like on Jim Harbaugh? He is the hardest book to read I've ever tried to read. I mean, who knows how this is affecting him? Somebody should, point out to him, you think maybe people have, hey, man, this is a serious deal going down here. Yeah, and maybe he'll get it.
DeVier, overall, how well do the Buckeyes and the Wolverines, just from a football stand-up, match up in this game?
Oh, this is a big matchup. One of the best in the country this weekend. You're talking about 2 of the nation's top defenses, 2 of the most efficient passers. They're not going to wow you with stats, but these guys really don't turn the ball over. I mean, both only have four interceptions on the year. They've only had 335 passing yards. They're high. So this team's on both sides of the offensive of ball. They're very efficient. They run the ball well, Travion and Blake Corum. They get their tight ends involved. Both sides of the team. They're really kind of looking in the mirror offensively and defensively. The strength of each team is their defensive line. So who can get to the quarterback, who can not turn the ball over, and who can be efficient on third down and score in the red zone is what's going to be very important here.
Adam, your motto is you're critical of the quarterback position. You always have, not at Ohio State, but
I don't think that's ever. Let's be clear. I don't have a motto of that at all.
It's his motto, trust me. Folks. Anyways,
I have witnessed. I've never said that in my life.
Critical of the quarterback position. With that said, at Ohio State, it is Kyle McCord, and he's only as good as his offensive line.
Okay.
Is Kyle McCord and this offensive line ready for this test?
Go get him, Adam.
I'm ready. No, I got a chance to sit down with Kyle and kind of talk about the season and where he is, and I just get the feeling from Kyle that there is another gear. And the good thing for Kyle is he doesn't have to go into Ann Arbor and have a Heisman moment. He doesn't have to go into Ann Arbor and play the greatest game of his career. Ryan Day, sometimes it's kind of funny. Ryan Day has these sayings, which is competitive stamina and managing the game. But I actually feel like managing the game is perfect for Kyle. Just go out there and just keep it even-keeled, which is what he does best. I do think when we look back on this game, I think it's going to be the moment where Kyle says, let's go. you know what, one way or another, I'm not going to be the reason that we lose this game. I feel like the offensive line has come a long way. For some reason, they like to block better for Travion Henderson than anyone else. They're a big fan of that. But if they can keep Kyle McCord's jersey clean, I think this Buckeye offense is going to do phenomenal.
I have a motto: when in doubt, air it out. I've always said that. The other thing is, no one consistently covers the tight end at any level of football. Cade Stover's going to factor big time in this game if Kyle McCord keeps him in mind, which I think he will.
Well, you've always been very critical of the tight end position.
Well,
it's your motto.
No, I have not. I mean, I think tight ends are the most underutilized, except when you really need them. And these are the kind of games where they step up because they really need them.
Tim, Ohio State has 2 home run hitters for sure, and Travion Henderson, Marvin Harrison Jr. With that said, and I do think Cade Stover will figure in. But for those 2 guys in particular, and Earl Bruce, Woody Hayes, they all said in the big-time games, big-time players,
make big plays, blah, blah,
become
blah.
legends.
That's it. That was his motto.
What do you think we see out of those 2 guys?
Well, the guy you didn't name, and I understand that, Emeka Egbuka, because he hadn't gotten to play much, but that enhances Marvin Harrison Jr. and Cade Stover's chances of really having big games, because this guy changes things for their defense when he's in there. We saw him play in full speed last week in that game for the first time really since he suffered that looked like a high ankle sprain. If he's ready to go 100%, and he says he will be, that just changes everything for all those guys, because now, I was talking to Cal McCord, he's finally got the weapons that he had at the beginning of the year, and they're ready to go, and he's much more experienced than he was at Indiana. And it just changes everything for this offense from a confidence standpoint of Cal McCord. Somebody's going to be open, and it might even be Julian Fleming.
All right, Dave, on the other side of the ball, this game will feature 2 of the top defenses in the country. Michigan currently ranked number 1. Who have they played? But they are number 1. Statistically, they are there.
I don't
but
think
who have they
played was in the question.
Is that a question? Is UNLV?
Is that your motto? Who have they played?
Let me run down the
Tough
list.
Ohio
Maryland
State,
game last week.
and you see who Ohio State's played, and they're ranked 4th in the country. We know Ohio State has delivered so far this year. I mean, it's been amazing each week. We know that Maryland last week was able to get pressure on J.J. McCarthy. They were able to sack him. With that said, is Jim Knowles and this Silver Bullet defense licking their chops?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to digest there.
Oh,
but
they are,
the
yeah.
last part of that comment, yeah, they are. This is the game. This is the final exam. They're better this year. And last year they had 5 touchdowns of a combined 349 yards. That's 70 a pop.
Yeah.
5 of them, not 2 of them.
Just shy of 70.
5, yes, exactly. Yeah, 69.2 for being exact. So I mean, that's not going to happen again. It can't happen again. That's such an anomaly. But can Michigan run for 5 yards a carry and do that 35 times? That can also put points on the board. This defense is better, and they're better than Michigan's defense. They have to show it now, though. We've said all year they're fixed. This is their final exam. I think the biggest thing that could go wrong here is if they're just too amped up, too nervous, too, almost making it bigger than it is, and it's hard to do because it is so big.
Yeah.
But you've been waiting for this one for a full year, and everyone has said it doesn't matter when it's against Maryland. It doesn't matter against Minnesota. All that matters is this one. That can get in your head a little bit. So as long as they can stay calm, I think they're going to win the game, because 2 years ago, the wrecker up there was Aiden Hutchinson. Yep. He wrecked the game. Yep. JT Tuimoloau is that guy. And I don't think Michigan's D-line, while good, doesn't have a wrecker like they did 2 years ago.
Big time.
Yeah.
D-line. No.
All I know, history sometimes repeats itself, and history, Tim, shows us that the best team does not always win.
Yeah.
I remember going up there when Ohio State was favored, and I remember Biaka Batuka ruining the day.
1995.
It's just the best team doesn't always win. I think as I look at on paper, I will take Ohio State's skilled players over everyone. I think it's a toss-up with the guys in the trenches, although I do like Ohio State's defensive front. With that said, I think the motivation is with Ohio State, and therefore it's time to pick our game winners. And I'm going to start with me. I'm taking Ohio State to win 28-24. I know that's no big surprise, but I don't particularly care for that team up north, and I'm not an apologist. Tim May, how do you see it?
Michigan's number 1 in the country in points, fewest points allowed, 9.0. Ohio State's number 2 in the country, 9.27 points allowed. I don't care about that. This is a game. This is a game where offense has come to play more often than not in this century. I see Ohio State 31-20.
I like that. DeVier Posey.
You got to let it all hang out, man.
Yeah, I see us getting to 31 points as well, and I don't see Michigan getting to 17 points.
Wow.
Yeah.
I like
our
it.
defense is going to come and play. This is a championship defense. What I saw last week versus Maryland gave me a lot of confidence going into this week.
Adam King, how do you see it?
I think the best players on the field win you games. And I think if you laid out a spreadsheet and checked them off at position, I think you'd be surprised to see that Ohio State wins a lot of that check mark. And when you go to distractions and coaching, they certainly win there right now. I think the Buckeyes get it done. I think they win 34-28. But I will say this. The 28, I think, is going to be tough to come by. I think that's something that the defense, it just hasn't happened. We've been waiting for the other shoe to drop this year.
We're not giving up 28
And just to be clear, before Dave gives his answer, we all sat down for a roundtable to start the season. You said 12-0, you said 12-0, you said 12-0. I said 12-0.
It's true.
Dave, what did you say?
I said 11-1.
So, Dave, who are you picking?
Well, now,
Cue the 60 minutes intro.
allow me to hedge here on that prediction. When I said 11-1, I was playing a 12-team parlay, and I saw road games.
That is what he said.
Because you guys pinned me to the wall that day and said, what's the loss? I said, well, at Notre Dame, at Wisconsin, Penn State at home, at Michigan, one of them. So
That's
let's
all
hope
it
I'm wrong. And if we are, I will gladly come out and apologize. I do think that Sharon Moore is going to play your guys' tape on a loop in the locker room. You guys think they're going to?
He's got a lot of tape to play.
I think it's way more of an old school.
That's a good sign stealing joke.
That's a very,
He's
very
worried
underrated.
about what we're saying, and
No.
he's got big issues.
I think this is more low scoring than you guys do. I'm going to Ohio State 24-20. I just think it's going to be an old school football game where there's going to be a lot of punting, a lot of field position. Two teams that might be a little hesitant to air it out, and two defenses that are pretty decent against the run. So I think 24-20 Ohio State. And I will be wrong, and gladly, I will have pumpkin pie and crow this Thanksgiving weekend.
I just had to give you
No,
that.
I was waiting for it. I wonder if someone's going to play the tape. And by the way, if they lose, I'm not going to crow.
Yeah, you're not gonna walk out.
I'm not going to brag about getting 11-1 right.
Yeah,
Trust me.
All right, guys, great stuff. Keep it on 10 TV, 97.1 The Fan. We have you covered when it comes to the Buckeyes.